Alpha Juliet 4 Golf Whiskey. Alpha Juliet 4 Golf Whiskey.
Roger, Roger, Golf Whiskey, and what's the name there?
Roger, Roger, Golf Whiskey, and what's the name there? Name is Gary.
Spell that phonetically.
Spell that phonetically. Golf Alpha Romeo Yankee.
Roger, Gary, that's why, it's a good idea to spell things phonetically, because I thought you said, anyway, we got the right name there, Gary. And what's your location, sir?
Gary, and what's your location, sir? Roger, I'm in, my station is in the northern part of West Virginia, the northern part of the state of West Virginia, over.
Roger, Gary, and what radio are you running, sir?
Roger, Gary, and what radio are you running, sir? Roger, I have a ICOM 7300 feeding a clear 6-band antenna, over.
Okay, Gary, why don't you tell me about your antenna system and give me about 10 seconds of that so I can tune around and see if I can find a better path for us.
Roger, I have a west of the mountains in the valley, West Virginia near Canaan Valley. The town is Thomas, West Virginia, cute little town. Stand antenna in the backyard with a good ground plane I put in, and that on a slope of a hill facing west. But I get pretty good propagation north and south, over.
Roger, call sign is Kilo, Charlie, 9, Victor, Kilo, Victor. And this is the Qso-Vlog net, and my name is Jim, KC9VKV, and we're down around Louisville, Kentucky. We're on the Indiana side of the Ohio River, right at Louisville, Roger. Roger.
Sounds like a beautiful part of the country, over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is. I've lived a few places, and by all means, this is the better place to be, and I'm glad to be here. It's about the time you get tired of one season, the next one comes around, and it just keeps life interesting. As opposed to, I'm originally from Florida, down around West Palm Beach, and I enjoyed being there for a while, and then I was up here, and you forget sometimes about the disadvantages of, like in Florida, the mosquitoes and the no-see-ums and all kinds of animals that want a piece of you, Roger.
I understand. I lived in South Dade County, south of Miami, for junior high and high school, and I went to college out of there. My folks moved to Texas. I was in the Coast Guard for 20 years, so I lived in a number of places, all pretty nice since they're by the coast. Seattle, Washington. I had a tour in southern Italy. I lived in London, Connecticut. So a lot of nice parts of the country, over.
Yes, sir. Now, did you have to get out there in them boats and try to save them people, those fishermen in bad weather and stuff?
Negative. What I did, I was on an icebreaker. I was on a polar icebreaker. We went to the Arctic and the Antarctic. That was my initial tour. I later got into electronics in the Coast Guard, particularly Loran Charlie. I don't know if you're familiar with radio navigation, but I was a Loran Charlie engineer. Had a station and a Loran chain I ran in the Mediterranean Sea, over.
Roger. Now, let me see if I reflect properly on that. And you might know, but I was in West Palm Beach. That's where I lived. And up around Jupiter, I think there was a Loran station, and there was seemed to be up around, 2 kilohertz or something like that. And it just was kind of a noisy kind of thing that just generated a signal all the time, Roger? Roger?
Absolutely. That was Loran Station, Jupiter. I think it was Jupiter Beach, Florida. Yeah, there was a Loran station there. Was 100 kilohertz, 100 kilohertz signal pulse, put out about a quarter of a megawatt pulse power. And they also had a package store, Coast Guard Exchange package store, so they had to put a Lieutenant JG in as command of that instead of a warrant officer, so they had the package store there. Over.
Yes, sir. Now, when you say a quarter of a million watts, is that have anything to do with the gain of the antenna, or is that just a brute? I mean, you know, it's hard to figure that you could get a gain antenna at that frequency. So, are you talking about AC power in that range? AC power in that range? Yeah, it's peak power. It's a pulse system, put out 8 pulses in a string at a certain group repetition interval, which is how the navigation works. But it's brute power, just a big Hertz transmitter, water-cooled tube, into a, let's see, Jupiter, Florida probably had a 825-foot tower. They might have been a half a meg. If they had the new solid-state station, I think they had installed about a half a megawatt. But it's an electrically short antenna, so it's a relatively inefficient antenna at 100 kilohertz. Over. Oh, yes, sir. You know, that would probably be like a power line running 5 miles back in the woods, Roger.
Power line running 5 miles back in the woods, Roger. Right. The one that's like a power line is the Omega system, which has, I think, the tallest tower on French soil is on, what's the island off Africa? Le Réunion Island. They have the tallest towers. In Hawaii, they had a valley span antenna. In Norway, they had an antenna that spanned the fjord. That was the Omega system, which was even below the Loran wavelength. Over.
Roger. Now, and then so a ship would use a direction finder to tell them where they were by receiving that signal off of Jupiter. Receiving that signal off of Jupiter.
Negative. It was not a RDF system. We had radio beacons for that. The Loran system worked on hyperbolic navigation. You have a chain of stations geographically distributed that put out pulses at the same group repetition rate. And you receive the maybe 3 pulses from the master and the 2 slave stations on your receiver, and you measure the time difference between them. And that's mathematically a hyperbolic line that you would find yourself on. So you get 3 lines and you get a fix from that. So it's called a hyperbolic navigation system. Think of if you were in a battle and you had 3 cannons around you that fired that were far away, and you heard the boom, boom, boom separated in time. If you could figure out the time difference and the speed of sound, you could locate yourself with respect to the cannons. Over.
Roger, but it was part of a marine navigational system, Roger.
A marine navigational system, Roger. Absolutely. The Loran C was put in for maritime navigation. The stations I had in the Mediterranean Sea were put there to support the Navy's nuclear submarines. They aimed their weapon system and navigated with Loran C, among other things. Over.
Roger. Now, I don't want you to divulge any top secrets here, but you know, them submarines ain't flying in the air. They're down underneath the water, and they're copying the mail on this Loran C underneath the water. Is that a Roger? Loran C underneath the water. Is that a Roger?
That's an interesting question. The submarines would trail this long antenna behind them, you know, trailing antenna, big long antenna, a couple meters beneath the surface. They couldn't be too deep. They developed a system. It was not a communication system originally. It was just navigation. But they developed a technique called two-pulse communications, where they would take two of the 8 pulses in the pulse train, and they modulate a movement ahead in time and back in time to make zeros and ones. And they can send out some low bandwidth, really low bandwidth messages on the 2 pulse comms. The Navy, of course, had their other system, the VLF system for communications that had the terrestrial antennas. But Lorenzi was mostly for navigation, but they did put a little communications feature on it that could be used to send signals to the submarine.
Roger, Roger, Gary. Well, let me salute you, sir, for your efforts and your service to your country, sir. And we appreciate you, Roger.
Sure, and we appreciate you, Roger. Well, I appreciate that.
So let me say 73, Gary. Your radio sounds really nice. I would keep it just like that. I wish I had a better copy on you, but conditions are what they are, and I went around the horn looking for a better situation. We run 4 Internet SDR receivers, and then we have a 5th that is loaded with 50 additional pre-programmed SDR locations covering mainly 20 states in the eastern part of the United States, with the theory being that a 100-watt transmitter in the eastern part of the United States should be S7, S5 somewhere, but a lot of times we're running across folks that even though we're running 4 internet SDRs plus the 50 other and plus my local antennas, which includes 3 vertical magnetic loops, I can barely hear them. So it has to do with the antennas, and I have found, I think, the ideal answer is a tuned dipole antenna. A resonant tuned dipole antenna, I think, is probably one of the most efficient antennas going. Roger?
Probably one of the most efficient antennas going. Roger? I think you're right. If you build it right and tune it, it's very powerful. You get a little limitation on direction, but it's hard to beat on it.
Roger, Roger, Gary. Well, listen, 73 to you, sir. If you want to hear your audio, if you go to YouTube, do a call letter search for KC9VKV, followed by the word logbook. That will take you to this recording. It'll be cut number 1 in a series of 3,000, and I'll have it uploaded by noon tomorrow. Roger, Roger.
1,000, and I'll have it uploaded by noon tomorrow. Roger, Roger. Roger that, 73.
Roger, Roger. And with that being said, we got to get out of here and return this frequency back to normal amateur radio use. This is KC9VKV, the Qso-Vlog net, clear.